Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 194 of our trip around the United States. This morning, we are starting things off in the Rio Grande River Valley. Now, we didn't have any hikes planned, but Aichan has a lot of energy. So we decided we're gonna come out here on the trail and hit a geocache or two just to get her worn down a little bit before we start into our miles for the day. Today we have 200 miles to cover. We're gonna be pushing north away from the border of Mexico, at least for a little bit, and then west until we get to Laredo. We only have 4 counties to cover today, but they're fairly large counties and they're gonna take us the better part of the day to cover. There's not many geocaches to be found in this area. This part of Texas is lonely as far as caches and people are concerned. If you look at the map, it's pretty much all desert, farms, and a lot of empty open roads. So most of the counties we're going through have very limited targets for us to find. So I expect we're gonna fly our way through to Laredo relatively quickly. Once we get there, assuming we have enough time, we're gonna take Aichan somewhere she's never been before, Mexico. That's right, we're planning on crossing the border from Laredo into Nuevo Laredo and hiking out for the 2 geocaches located there in the border town. Hopefully that'll work out well, because I'd like to be able to pin another one on the dog's hat and say she's been to Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Either way, I know we're gonna make it to Laredo today with no problem because there's not a lot of geocaches to distract us. So let's get out there and hit the road. Come on, let's go.
Coming out of Edinburg, we pushed our way north through a series of virtuals until we reached La Salle de Rey within the lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge. The 530-acre salt lake sitting at the end of this trail system has been a source of salt to humans since prehistoric times and is the main geological feature and name of the area. 10 times saltier than the ocean, the lake was once a valuable source of salt for Native Americans, Spanish explorers, and Western pioneers. Today, it is still important to many wildlife species that call the Salt Lakes home. For Aichan and I, the trail out toward the lake provided Aichan with a good little bit of exercise this morning, enjoying the cool southern weather before we hit the road. We would spend the majority of our day navigating the roads through the lower Rio Grande River Valley, a region spanning the border of Texas and Mexico, located within the floodplain of the Rio Grande near its mouth. The main part of this region is found within 4 Texas counties: Starr, Hidalgo, Willacy, and Cameron. But even when we pushed north out of these counties, it was still a lot of empty roads for miles and miles. There are really 3 main things to be able to see as you traverse this area: the occasional broken down car in a yard, historical markers along the edges of farmlands, and, of course, the geocaches that we use to guide our way all the way to Laredo. Well, I suppose you could count a 4th thing as well. There are a lot of police and border patrol agents along these roadways. In fact, that was probably the most common feature that we saw today besides geocaches. I had the opportunity to talk to several of these police officers as we found the geocaches, because as soon as we would get out of the car and go locate a container, they would come out of practically nowhere to see what we were doing. At one point, Aichan and I got to meet 2 officers within 10 minutes of each other from one geocache directly to the next. It was actually fairly impressive how well policed these roads are, considering there's not really much of anything out here. In the geocaching game, we call these kind of encounters LEOs, as in law enforcement officers. And normally, I would not have even this many LEOs caching through the middle of the night in a city. So it was very odd to me to feel like I was out in the middle of the nowhere and constantly explaining myself to one Leo after another. The multitude of encounters were always very pleasant and professional, and I took the chance each time to introduce the officers to the great game of geocaching. There was really no end to these empty, lonely country roads filled with Leos until we made our way all the way into the city of Laredo. Fortunately, there was a brand new geocache listing just south of the city to help break things up a little bit before our final leg. Located just outside of La Perla Ranch, this is a great viewpoint with a nice parking area that gives you a chance to walk out on the trail and stretch your legs after many hours on the road. The Earth Cache listing also does a great job of breaking down the features of the Rio Grande.
And there it is, the Rio Grande. We are looking across the river into Mexico, and we are making
pretty phenomenal time today. We have a few more geocache targets in front of us, and then we'll be in Laredo, finish off what we have there, and then we'll walk across the border into Nuevo Laredo. I think by then, Ai-chan will be awake from her afternoon nap because she's passed out pretty hard by now. But if not, I'll give her a few slices of chicken jerky, and that usually gets her up and moving because she needs to get some afternoon exercise while we go into Mexico.
After a long day spent on the empty roads, we finally reached the city of Laredo, home to one of the oldest crossing points along the Mexico-US border, and also the nation's largest inland port of entry. This is the only city in Texas that flies 7 flags rather than 6. The 7th flag is that of the Republic of the Rio Grande, which has flown since 1840. As the county seat of Webb County, I quickly sought out the county courthouse in the hopes that there might be a veterans memorial sitting out front. And wouldn't you know it, there it is. Today's route was dangerously close to not having any veterans memorials along it at all, so I was very happy to see this display and have an opportunity to pay my respects. Having completed all of our targets for the day, and finding most of the geocaches within the city, a vital find for DeLorme page 82, Ai-chan and I parked the car and then made our way over to the Gateways of America Bridge to cross into Nuevo Laredo. There are exactly 2 geocaches located south of the border within Nuevo Laredo. It is about a mile to the first one and a little more than a quarter mile from that to the second one. Fortunately, it is a very direct route south, moving across the border straight to Plaza Mexico for the first of the 2 finds. It was an extraordinarily long mile to walk though, not just because the streets are crowded with people, but because there are a million interesting things to smell, and Ai-chan had to stop at each one of them and thoroughly investigate. I indulged her though, allowing her to take in each of the unique and interesting scents to its fullest, as I know that this is the way that she will get to best experience Mexico. Meanwhile, I enjoyed the sights along the way, starting with Plaza Hidalgo. This was a very busy spot, brimming with not only people, but stray dogs as well, which I had to shoo away while Ai-chan continued her investigation of the smells. The center point of Plaza Mexico is the Biblioteca Publica, which is the public library. And, much more importantly to our mission, about 20 feet behind the statue is the geocache we were seeking as well, which we were able to track down in short order. Having successfully tracked down one of the 2 geocaches located within the city, we did not feel any compelling need to go for the second. Instead, Ai-chan and I began to make our way back to the border once again. Really, just like any other trail we take, the walk back was about twice, maybe even 3 times the speed since Ai-chan had already investigated so many of the smells. I had set aside a large block of time for this adventure, knowing that border crossings back into the US can usually be pretty busy, but it turned out it was a quiet day. We moved across relatively smoothly, and before we knew it, we were back in the US once again. A successful tour of the Rio Grande Valley, Laredo, and Nuevo Laredo, all before sunset.
Well, travelers, that does it. We managed to accomplish our entire mission for the day. We pushed north off of the border this morning, and we spent all day long in the Rio Grande River Valley, making miles through farm after farm on those lonely country roads. It was a pretty relaxing drive, to be perfectly honest with you, and without a lot of geocaches out there through those counties that we traveled through, it made it pretty easy to make good time. We made it into Laredo in the late afternoon hours and still had the sun on our side, so we decided to cross into Nuevo Laredo and get the dog her first trip into Mexico. Let me tell you, she enjoyed those smells immensely. We only had to walk a mile in to get to our geocache target, and it took probably twice as long as it should have because she was stopping to smell every single thing along the way. And you know what? I wanted to let her enjoy the experience because that's what seeing the country is for her. For me, of course, it was getting to see the different plazas and stamping my name on a logbook to count a new area in Mexico. From here, we're actually going to push a little bit out of Laredo to end our night. I have a spot picked out that looks like it's going to be a good stop for us to rest for the night and then continue on tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a very easy day on miles and has even less targets than we did today. So I see absolutely no problem with making our goal of San Antonio by the end of the day. It should be a very easy stretch. Thank you guys for joining us. on this adventure into and back out of Mexico between Laredo and Nuevo Laredo, and our journey through the Rio Grande River Valley. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.